What's up, my man? How you doing?
How's it going, man?
It's going good. So the this speaking words tour. Explain this to me. What do you do? I mean, are you playing music? Is it spoken word? Is it a combination, or what is it?
Well, I call it speaking words because to me, spoken word just makes me think of some douche smoking a cigarette in a crappy coffee shop reading bad poetry, and that's,
some hipster guy. Yeah,
and that's exactly what I'm doing. No. It's just spoken word. It's not what I'm doing. I'm just telling stories. I'm telling stories from my life, from more than even just 33 years of traveling the world in a band, and the people I've met and the crazy experiences I've had with those people, and most of them ending up with me and a pants full of poo. But yeah, there's a lot of self-deprecating humor in it, and not to sound cliche, but I've done my job when people come up to me after the show and ask me, like, is that true? Like, did you really get drunk with Lemmy in 1985 and then end up in Munich in a fight with a Nazi doctor 36 hours later? And I'm like, how do you make that up? So yeah, for real.
Well, you probably do have a million stories. You started Anthrax in what year was it?
81.
1981. And like you said, you've toured the world. You've probably been to, do you have any idea how many different countries you've been to?
Everyone that will let a band from America play in their borders, I guess you could say. A lot.
So probably 50 countries.
At least, if not more, yeah.
And you probably have a million stories from all of those periods of time, right? Is there anything that you've I don't know if you were into drugs, alcohol, or
I talk about that. I mean, not every night. That's the thing. I don't have like a set list, let's say, like you would at a gig, you know. I kind of I have an opening and have something I close with, and then the rest of the show is I just kind of go with it, and I don't know, I feel out the crowd a little bit depending on what stories I'm going to think
so you may have to veer in a different direction depending on what you're feeling, what the crowd is feeling,
sure.
That sort of stuff.
In the UK, I did a whole run in the UK back last June, and I would kind of gauge the room in the first 10 minutes, and by gauge the room, that means how drunk are they, and are they going to be able to follow like a 30-minute story that has a payoff, or do I just need to keep everything like 10 minutes and bang, bang, bang?
Right,
you know,
right. Are there stories or parts of your life when you've gone to, you know, you've been in bands since the 80s that you don't even recall because of drugs or alcohol or something?
That's the thing. I was never into drugs or alcohol. I mean, I drink, and I do tell the story of how I learned how to drink starting when I was 33 in 1997 with Darrel from Pantera. He taught me how to drink. I learned at the feet of the master. So I never had that. I never had that issue.
When you say, I mean, did you not really drink prior to that? I mean, everyone probably.
I picked my spots, you know. But I started this band in '81, and I was sober at the time. Not a conscious decision like I'm sober guy, but because on my 18th birthday, drinking age was 18 in New York back then, and I got so sick on screwdrivers that just even the smell of booze for years after that, everyone out there I'm sure has that same story. I got so sick on gin, I can't drink it, or I got so sick on tequila. Well, I just couldn't drink after that for years, and then the band started, in '81, and basically I was too busy. Like I felt like I really didn't have time to be hungover. I didn't have time to waste. Whereas certainly all my friends in other bands that I came up with, whether it was Metallica or Slayer or, those guys were all raging alcoholics already in like 82, 83, 84, 85. And I didn't drink. Most of Anthrax didn't drink. We were like known as the clean band. We would hang out and party with everyone else, but none of us were raging in that way. And so I would pick my spots. Yeah, there'd be once in a while where I would drink a bunch of beer or something, but I didn't drink booze or certainly I wasn't doing shots or
not whole periods of your life where you remember all of these stories
pretty
clearly.
Much.
And so at the age of 33, Dimebag Darrel teaches you how to drink.
Yeah, I just figured I should finally grow up and I should finally grow up and be like everybody else and destroy my liver. Yeah, I mean, we had a celebration on that tour the night I finished my whole first bottle of Crown on my own, and everybody's cheering and yelling one more shot, and so am I. And then meanwhile, I'm thinking this is an awesome thing to be celebrating. That my liver sucks now.
So what did he teach you? I mean, did he teach you?
He didn't teach me anything.
He just basically made you drink and then drink some more.
I just tried to keep up with him. Basically, with drinking these Blacktooth shots, Crown and Coke or Seagram's and Coke, and I spent 2 weeks, throwing up basically, but I committed to it. I said, I'm all in, dude. I'm committing, and it took about 2 weeks, and then like boot camp was over, and I was able to like drink a bottle of whiskey without it phasing me.
When you, and just staying on Dimebag Darrel for a moment, and I forget I think it was down in Columbus where he was shot and killed on stage. Yeah. Where were you when you heard that?
I had just gotten to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I was with my wife, and we were going to visit her grandma in Lancaster. We had driven from New York City, and we got into a hotel in Lancaster 11:30-ish at night, and I took a shower, rinse off before going to bed. And I come out, and my wife's like, your phone has not stopped ringing. Like all kinds of people, like Charlie, the drummer from Anthrax, and other people, publicists and all industry people calling me like in a weeknight that late. It was very strange. And so I called Charlie back, and he told me, Darrel was killed, and I didn't even understand what he was. Wait, what? What does that even mean? What are you talking about? He's drunk? What do you mean he's killed? And then, of course, he told me the news that everybody heard that night. And I, just sat there stunned, and we put CNN on and laid in bed. And, within minutes, it was on CNN. And it was just a weird denial. And went and visited Grandma the next day. And I was in, a weird, it's hard to explain. I didn't know how to process it because there was no touchstone. There was no reference point for what happened to Darrel. That's never happened before. And I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way, but even in the rap world, when people have been shooting at each other or killing each other, no one's gotten shot on stage.
Right.
No one's walked on stage and shot somebody. This has never happened in our lifetimes or other lifetime, whatever. It's never happened. So it's so unreal that this happened.
Did that make people in the industry? I know. Look, we know that was an isolated incident, and the guy was nuts or whatever. But then the more you think about it, you think to yourself, well, I think I saw a statistic that said since in the past 2 months or there's been 16 school shootings in the United States of America. I mean, these crazy things like this happen. And you start to wonder, boy, I'm surprised this hasn't happened before, and could it happen again? Do bands or people like you change the way you do anything, or do you ever think about it?
All the time. It changed everything profoundly for every touring band, and if it doesn't change it for you, then you're stupid. We didn't play shows without barricades before that. Obviously, we don't play shows without barricades after that. And but yeah, you can't help but have that in the back of your mind sometimes, when you're around crowds or people, or you don't know who's hanging out outside by your bus after a show. And I don't live my life. I don't live in a bubble now, worried all the time. That's not how I live my life at all. I'm not one of those dudes that's afraid to walk outside because, a flower pot's going to fall on my head. But at the same time, it's certainly because, things change the way we do things as far as just access. Let's put it that way. Since that point in time,
I'm even surprised. I mean, I know that professional sporting events and things like that, there is security, but you've been to baseball games, football games. You know that the security is not really hardcore security. It is somewhat amazing to me that stuff like that doesn't happen more often. Especially with how passionate people are about sports and things like that. Where they don't go berserk.
Well, it happens you see it in South America or places I've seen where someone runs on the field and stabs a ref or stabs a goalie or in a soccer match.
Yeah.
So it does happen. It just hasn't happened here yet.
Yeah. Thankfully. Scott Ian is here. His Speaking Words 2014 tour is at 7:30 tonight at the Agora Ballroom. Do you play any music, or is this all spoken word stuff?
It's all stories. I do a Q&A section where I get asked a lot about, things or songs or this or that, and I don't whip out a guitar or anything like that, but I will talk certainly about anything people want to talk about in the Q&A, and I've actually made up some new songs on stage for people right in the moment, like kind of off the top of my head to as a joke, obviously. But, it's something that I've thought about. Look, I'm never going to be the guy with an acoustic guitar sitting in a chair singing songs. That's not what I do. That's not to say eventually if I keep doing this kind of stuff, I won't find a way to incorporate a guitar into this, because I do have some ideas how I can incorporate it, and it would be humorous, and it would kind of fit the tone of the rest of my show. So I'm thinking that even in these next 2 weeks of dates I'm doing, I might try and do that one night just to try and workshop it in front of a crowd and see if people are into it or not. So we'll see.
You do the Q&A session. What's the best question someone's asked you so far on these tours?
I guess,
or the hardest, or whatever.
I get asked some weird stuff. I had a kid the other night asking me questions like, who would win in a fight? And then he names the names of 2 Judas Priest songs, The Exciter or The Painkiller. Who would win? And I'm like, dude, you win. You won the Q&A with that one. And then me being the nerd that I am, I'm like, I need to think about this. Let's take another question. We're going to come back to that one while I'm thinking about it. And I went with The Exciter just because I like that record better.
Have there been any questions that you have declined to answer? Anyone thrown you off?
No, if I can answer it, I'll answer it. If I have an answer, I will. If it's someone asked me to solve a geometry equation, then I'm in trouble. But I can't. I won't shy away from anything. People ask me about my father-in-law all the time. What's it like having Meatloaf as your father-in-law? And depending on what kind of mood I'm in, it depends on how truthful the answer is. Because the truthful answer is not exciting at all. He's a regular guy, and we hang out, we eat food, and we talk about football and music, and like everybody, we're just people. But that's not what people want to hear. So I tend to make up some pretty big answers for that, and people tend to believe it, and I don't disprove it.
We had Meatloaf on the show maybe about a year ago or whatever, and I asked him about these medical things. I'd see on like TMZ or whatever where he's like passed out at a concert or whatever, and he's laying there on his back and sweat dripping off, and he really minimized it as, that was all overblown. But then I went back and I looked at it, and at the video. I didn't look at it at the time when he was telling us this, but I looked at it. I go, that looked a little more serious than he was letting on. I mean, how is Meatloaf's health?
Good. He's good. He came over for the Super Bowl. He was in Los Angeles doing promo for his new Vegas show, and so he came over it was like kind of an honor. He said, I'm coming to your house to watch the game. And we're like, cool. And put a big spread out and invited friends over and had a really good time. And he's in great health and great spirits and just super excited because the Vegas thing is doing really well. So, and I just got like an email from him the other day. Like, it's the email like, you are playing on the new record. It's not, he doesn't ask me, which I would, of course, but he sent
You're married to my daughter. You're playing on the record.
He sent me a Jim Steinman song, and he said Jim Steinman asked for me to play on it, which is pretty exciting for me because I've been a fan since 1978 when Bat Outta Hell came out. My brother and I, my dad, we were big fans of that record. I saw Meatloaf live in 1978 on Long Island.
Isn't that crazy? You saw him live in 1978,
crazy.
And then you marry his daughter however many years later.
He's my father-in-law. Like that's why I'm doing a speaking word show. My life, I'm telling you, it's like, who the hell let me in here? Some of the things I've been around and situations I've been in are just, it's insane. I mean, to be able to say that, it's like, yeah, and then now Meatloaf is my father-in-law. It's like, how the hell did that happen?
How'd you meet his daughter?
Another great story. She was singing backup for Motley Crue. Anthrax was opening for Motley Crue in 2000, and that's how we met. I would stand on the side of the stage and watch this hot blonde every night singing backup with Motley, and we just became bros, like tour bros. Motley was sober at the time, and we weren't. So Pearl and the other backup singer, they would come hang out on our bus and drink whiskey with like me and our bass player Frankie, and we would hang out every night just as bros. But I had a huge crush on her, But you're in that tour bubble, so I wasn't gonna act on it because it just would be weird.
It could be awkward if she rebuffed you or whatever.
Or whatever happens, you don't crap where you eat. I live by that, and then we had to leave the tour. Anthrax had to go home 3 weeks in with 5 weeks left because tour wasn't doing so well, and we got asked to cut our guaranteed money, and we said no, and they said thanks, we love you guys, but see ya. And then all of a sudden I'm home with 5 weeks to go, and I realized like I never told her, I never told her that. So I write like a 4 or 5 page handwritten letter, and I stick in a FedEx and I send it to a hotel that she's at, and because we would talk all the time, and just as friends. And I sent this letter, and she never responded. Like I would talk to her every day after the show, but she never brought up the letter. So I just figured, that's it. I'm in the friend zone. That's it. I'm done.
Sure.
And then she got home from tour. It was September 9th, 2000. She gets home from tour, and a couple of days before that, and I'm going to see this band High on Fire at the Troubadour in L.A., and I knew she was home, and I said, hey, what are you doing? You want to go? I'm going to see this cool band, and do you want to come hang out? And just as bros, figured, whatever. Pearl's in town. Let's go hang out. And we've been together ever since. Wow. That was it. September 9th, 2000.
Why didn't she reply to your FedEx
She
letter?
said that the letter was so amazing, and she was so blown away by it. Every time she started to write something to reply to me, she would just tear it up and throw it out because she didn't feel like it was worthy of like what I had written her, and she just figured when she got home, she would just see what happens. Let's see what happens when I get home.
That takes
and then I called her and asked her out like immediately, and then that was it.
That takes a lot of balls on your part. I mean, to not just call someone and ask them out or whatever, but to put your feelings down on a piece of paper.
Oh, I knew this was the woman for me. Like I knew, like I was in love with this woman. After just 3 weeks, I'm like, who's better than her? She's hot. She's super talented. She's funny. She's smart, and she drinks. She could keep up with me. Matter of fact, she could drink me under the table. She rules. So 14 years later, with a son, and it's all good.
Did she keep that letter? Do you have that?
Yes, we have it.
So you have that letter someplace. So if you ever write like a book or whatever,
I whip it out. I'm like, do you remember when I wrote? No.
That's a great story, and I mean, you probably have a million great stories from your life that you do in this Speaking Words 2014 tour. That it's going to be at the Agora tonight at 7:30 p.m. Looking back at your entire career, if you had to pick one story that you say this is the greatest story I have to tell, what would it be? I'm not asking you to tell me the whole thing. I don't want you to blow your wad.
No,
go
I hear
see
you.
this tour. But I mean, what if you had to pick one story?
The one story which I actually haven't like kind of put into the context of doing it in a show, and I do have a book coming out in October called I'm the Man so that will give you, and what I'm trying to say is the story of kind of how I co-founded this band in July of 81, and those couple of first years from July of 81 till the fall of 83, those first 2 years of going from zero to recording our first album, to me, that's the best story I can tell, because that's the story of how I went from just a kid with a dream, basically, to starting a 33-year career in the music business. And I remember all of it. So, and it's all in the book. And I haven't really put it into the context of being able to put that into a spoken word format, let's say, where I'm telling it live yet, which I would like to do because I think people are really interested in that. Like, how did you make that happen? How did you do it? And there's no secret. It's not like I'm sitting here going, and this is how it happened, but just the story of what happened in those 2 years and what we went through to get to that point, I think would be interesting to many, many people who have the same dream that I did.
How much of it is, because you're right, a million bands want to do it.
Yeah.
How much of it is hard work and perseverance? How much of it is talent and how much of it is luck?
I like to say that. Can you say the PRICK word on the radio?
Prick, yeah.
I'd like to say that I was a tenacious prick, and I would never take no for an answer. And I think for me, that had a lot to do with it. At that point in time, the tenacity and persevering had more to do than the talent, certainly. Because, we're not the frigging Beatles. It's not like we wrote our first album and it was the greatest 9 songs written in the history of heavy metal. It's not like that. But we were good enough to get ourselves on the map, let's put it that way, at that point in time. And then you get better, hopefully, as a songwriter. But the perseverance and also timing, man. Timing, they always say it's luck and timing, right? Talent, luck, and timing. And the timing, because it was just when this wave that we didn't even know we were a part of at the time, but you had us and you had Metallica and then you had Slayer and, of course, Megadeth after Dave was out of Metallica. You had 4 bands all kind of knocking on the same door, all influenced by the same things and playing this thing that became called thrash metal. And it was just all about timing, too. And then people suddenly taking notice and like, this is the next wave of metal. The British wave had finished and Iron Maiden and Judas Priest blew up and they became the kings of metal, and now we were like the young upstarts coming in through the door that they had opened.
Scott Ian from Anthrax is here. His Speaking Words 2014 tour is at the Agora Ballroom tonight at 7:30. I don't know if you're in a rush. If I take a quick break, can you stick around? All
yeah.
Right. Scott Ian from Anthrax is here with us. He has it's a spoken word tour that he does, but he doesn't call it a spoken word tour. It's a speaking words tour.
Yes.
It's tonight, 7:30 at the Agora Ballroom.
Swearing words is more like it. My DVD that I filmed in Glasgow, I was going through the edit with my buddy who's editing it for me, and I was like, I had no idea I swore that much on stage. It just... the F word just comes out of me.
It's just second nature, isn't it?
It's amazing. I'm amazed that I'm able to govern it like when I'm sitting here because I didn't realize it. And then, so I had him, he's putting together a supercut of every swear word in this 2-hour and like 40 minutes worth of material on that thing. And I'm telling you, it blows Wolf of Wall Street out of the water as far as
the number of curses per minute.
I destroy them.
So you're putting together a DVD of one of these engagements?
Yes, I shot the show in Glasgow back last June. I wanted to document it, and when I was over there on that UK tour, but I really didn't even know how to go about it or what to do, and it was kind of like when I was already there doing shows, I was able to put the whole thing together and get a crew to come to Glasgow and actually shoot it, and then basically just give me, it's so funny, give me the hard drive to take home with me with all the footage on it. And so I had all that, and then it was a case of, well, what am I going to do with this? And then that slowly but surely turned into, I showed people the footage, and people were like, this is great, let's do this. And then that turned into this crowdfunding thing that I have, not to like segue into that, but I decided not to go the normal record company route with this because I wanted to own my content, and I didn't want to like sign it over to someone else and they put it out and then I get the smallest piece of the pie. I figured, why don't I own it and then I get the piece of the pie. So, and because Anthrax stopped doing that a while ago too, we started doing partnership deals and distribution deals, and we own our masters and we make the big percentage of the money now, unlike the way it's worked for 50 years in the record business. So that's how the Pledge Music thing came about. A lot of people have been asking me about it every day because I still think people really don't understand the crowdfunding thing. Like, if they pledge $10, they get a DVD. That's how it works. Like, if you went to Best Buy and plunked down $10, you get something for the $10. I think people still think that if they pledge $10, I'm just throwing it into like some Scrooge McDuck pile of money in my house. They're like, ha ha ha, I got them. No, you get something for your $10. And if you pledge $100, you look down the list, there's all kinds of crazy stuff.
You get autograph stuff or whatever.
That I'm offering, that as a fan, this is it's the only way this could ever possibly happen. So
you're
getting something for your money.
Do you have to be more creative as a band or as an artist these days in order to make revenue? Because the whole record label model has been completely turned upside down.
It's done. You have to. You have to just take record sales out of the equation completely. Whereas, it's weird because back when we were selling gold and platinum albums, up until the early 90s, let's say, we were selling all those records, but we were hardly making anything off of those records because the deals were so lopsided. Whereas now we put out records and we're making, let's say on a CD sold, we're making probably about $6 on that CD. So our last record in the States, Worship Music, has sold like 120,000 copies. So at $6, do the math. There's $720,000. We actually made more in a way on that record than we ever did when we were selling 1 million albums.
Really?
But we're also paying for all the marketing and all the promotion out of that because basically it's a partnership. We own it. So you're basically funding it yourself in a sense. That's why I think these Kickstarter, Pledge Music, let's say, crowdfunding campaigns, I think it's a great model because it completely gets rid of a middleman in every way, shape, or form. And I have all the expense of producing this thing, but you could go straight to the fans to make that happen. It kind of takes all the risk out of it.
They just did that with even a movie, Veronica Mars, which I guess was a television show, 10 or 15 years ago or whatever. Someone started a Kickstarter campaign to turn that into a movie. They raised enough money,
and
they've
millions.
they shot this movie. It's coming out pretty soon, I guess, which is just, that's pretty revolutionary, really. Now, of course, things can go bad if you pledge you want to make the Veronica Mars movie and you pledge $50 and then the friggin' thing never gets made because they don't hit their goal or whatever. I guess you're out your $50 or something.
Well, I don't know how it works I don't know how Kickstarter works, but on Pledge you don't lose your money. My DVD is being made and is coming out no matter what. So. So if you've pledged money for any of these experiences, that's going to happen for you.
Well, let me ask you about, you mentioned that you were on tour with Motley Crue in like 2000, 2001? This
2000,
is when you met your wife. And the tour wasn't going so well, you said, and I guess they weren't selling as many tickets as they had anticipated or whatever. And you had a contract for an engagement for a certain period of time. And it wasn't going well, and they said, "Hey, take less money," and you said, "No, go screw yourself," and you went home. Is that a common thing? And do you then have any sort of resentment to Motley Crue or their management after something like that?
No, we couldn't. Yes, I gotta say, initially we were a bit stunned, just because we've never had. Before that point in time, I'd never been sent home from a tour. Like you guys got to go. Like it had never happened before. Like we were literally walking around an amusement park in Houston on a day off, after the show in Houston, and my manager calls me on the phone. I'm getting off a roller coaster at the Six Flags park, and he's like, "You're off the tour. You're going home." I'm like, "What? How does?" He's like, "Yeah, they wanted to cut the guarantee in half, and you guys had already said you wouldn't do that, so." We're booking flights. Wow,
I'm surprised that they would even the kind of deals. I'm not savvy in the kind of deals that are put together for tours and stuff, but I'm surprised that would even be an option that they could just kick you off and, you think a guarantee is a guarantee.
It is.
They're stuck with you.
How things work sometimes. A piece of paper is worth the weight that it's,
Yeah.
Look, that was just the bottom line. And I got to admit, I was angry at first, mostly because I wasn't going to see Pearl every night. But, but I did talk to Nicky about it because I was angry. And I think things were weird for a little bit of time. And I did talk to him about it, though, and everything was fine. There was no resentment, or it's not like we went years and years to be like, "Oh, F those guys," it wasn't really that big of a deal.
What about this farewell
that being
tour?
said, I wish they would have tapped us to open this. Hey, Nicky. Trust me, it's much better that it's Alice Cooper. I think it's an amazing package. And I texted Nicky the other day after their thing, after the big announcement, and I just congratulated him, just saying I think it's awesome how you're doing this, and and if this is truly the case and it's never going to happen again, you guys might be the first ones to actually honor this and not stretch it out for 9 years on a farewell tour.
What do you think? If you had to make a bet as to whether it's really the farewell tour or not, I mean, that's tough when someone 5 years from now or 6 years, 10 years from now dangles a bunch of money in your face.
I understand. I get it. And everyone's done it, But, Nikki's a pretty ballsy character, and that they've always kind of, they've kind of in a lot of ways held a middle finger up to a lot of things in this business over the years. And I would like to believe that this is going to be it. That, look, if 10 years from now or whatever it is, someone backs a truck up to the house filled with cash and says one more Motley Crue show, I mean, what's going to happen? Are the police going to come and arrest them if they do a show? Are they going to be deported to, Burma if they what's going to happen? People will be like, yeah, I get to see him again. No one's going to be upset. So really, who cares? But at the same time, I like the fact that they're saying, like, that's it. We're breaking up the business and we're done with this. And why not go out on top?
Yeah.
I really hope that this is, because it's going to be a massive tour. It's every show is like selling out already from what I hear. And why not do it and really go out on top? That would be awesome.
You're a big Kiss fan too, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a band that's done a million farewell tours. What do you think about this thing? I guess they're being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and there was some controversy about what lineup they were going to have play. And so is it going to be the original guys? Is it going to be the current lineup? And they said, well, we're just not going to play at all. What do you think about that?
I think, look, I've got Gene Simmons tattooed on my leg, so whatever Gene says is what goes. I'm a fan just like everyone else. And would I want to see, if I was like I'm not going to the Hall of Fame thing, so would I want to see the 4 original dudes back in makeup one more time? Of course I would, as a fan. But bands don't do things dictated by what the audience wants. A band would last about a year if that's how you worked. You have to do things the way you want to do them. Kiss has been around for 40 years and are bigger now than they were in 1977 because Gene and Paul make smart business decisions. That's why. So you have to, as a fan, and if you love them, you have to abide by the decisions that Gene and Paul are making for their brand and their band. So why people get so upset over these things, I really don't understand. Like if they decided they were playing with Tommy and Eric, so fine. That's what they're doing. This is their band. This has been the lineup for a long time now. I get it. Those 2 guys aren't the guys who are getting in the Hall of Fame. It's Ace and Peter. I get it. So I think they made the right decision now by saying we're just not going to play. Like, you can't please everybody. We're just going to shut it down and just not do it. I get it. I understand.
How difficult is it? Scott Ian is here from Anthrax. He has a Speaking Words 2014 tour tonight, 7:30 at the Agora. Anthrax has been through a lot of different personnel throughout the years. How difficult is that to manage people, and what's the most difficult aspect of that? Is it just getting people along? Is it being on the same stage business-wise? Is it personalities?
It's everything. It's spending. You can't have 5 of you or 4 of you in a band, and also we're also not the kind of band with a dictator, or like it's someone's band and everyone else is just like it's Rob Zombie. It's Rob Zombie's band. Like, you know what I mean? Or Meatloaf. It's Meatloaf. And then there's you know what I mean? Anthrax isn't like that. It's very much a democracy. And with democracy comes growing pains sometimes. And so it's just trying to keep 5 dudes on the same page, business-wise, personality-wise, creatively. And you're spending more time with these other guys in your band than you do with your wives, children, families. It's the hardest thing in the world. That's why bands don't stay together. That's why every band has had some kind of a change in their lineup, and then maybe they come back to the original lineup. Just look at every band. Like, it's inevitable that there's going to be a conflict at some point.
If you founded Anthrax, one of the founding members, if if you guys have to get rid of the lead singer or something, does that fall upon you? Are you the person who tells or how does that work? Or do you have a manager that says, hey, so-and-so, you're out?
It could be, it just depends on the scenario. It's never good no matter what, it's never handled. There's no good way to ever do that. Look, I look at it this way. People ask a lot of times about Joey Belladonna and John Bush because, Joey was our guy that came up in the 80s with us, and we all came up together, and the band broke around the world. And then Joey was out of the band in early 92, and John Bush joined, and John was in the band for a dozen odd years or whatever. And then Joey came back to Anthrax. And I just look at it this way. I've been lucky enough to work with two amazing singers. Both of these guys are incredible. And both of them are hugely responsible for the success that this band has had, in its career. And now Joey's been back in this band since 2010. And the reason why Worship Music, our last record, was so big for us and connected to people all around the planet, and we played 207 shows on the back of that record, is because Joey took it from like being a good record to being a great record. He was the missing piece of the puzzle, and it took us a long time to figure that out. And we all had to grow up and check our egos and be able to sit down and say, let's just shut up and be a band because this is what we're supposed to be. And that's been working now for 3 years.
Was there one guy, and I didn't read it, I had it in all my prep, I saw one paragraph that, and I think it was a singer. One of the guys in the band said, yeah, this guy came. How many singers has Anthrax had throughout the years?
We had Neil Turbin, who was on our first album. He was only on the first record. Then Joey. Then John. We had another dude for 5 minutes who shall remain nameless, and then Joey.
It must have been this guy for 5 minutes, and there was a line in there that someone in the band said, we should have known on the first night that this was not the guy, that there was some big blow-up after the first show or an argument or something.
Yeah. And even before that, and it was just It was a low point for us, let's put it that way. 2009 was a bad year.
Just personality clash, or what was the problem?
Yes, everything clash.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone who just, you thought you saw something in them, and then you realized you weren't seeing it anymore. And that's really all I could say about it. I hate to say it, but it's something I can't talk about.
Yeah, there was a lawsuit or something, which probably makes you that you can't.
I wish him.
Speak.
I wish him the best in his life. I have no ill will towards Dan Nelson, that's his name. I have no ill will towards him personally at all, but it just wasn't going to work, And actually, he's the one who was proactive about it and made the decision, to not be in the band at the time. So,
but the current lineup that you have the Joey back. You love it. I mean, or do guys get? Does everyone get along pretty well, or do you say, hey, look, we have our own lives, our own, is there any sort of hanging out or how is...
On tour, certainly, there's a lot of hanging out. We all live geographically. Frankie lives in New York, Charlie lives in Chicago, I live in Los Angeles, Joey lives in upstate New York. The only other, John, our lead guitar player, lives in L.A. as well. So there's two of us in the same city. So off tour, no. But why, that's not something new. You spend so much time on tour together. When you get off tour, these are the last dudes I really am going to start be hanging out with, all week long, because I just spent months and months and months with them. I'd like to see my other friends maybe and my family. Right. And so, but yeah, on tour, there's a lot of hanging out. And on that personality level and on a friendship level, this is the best the band has been in forever and ever and ever. And I think I chalk a lot of that up to just us growing up.
Yeah, you get older and stuff you did as kids or stuff that bothers you.
You have different, three of us have children, in the context of me having a son, everything that goes in the band now is so just like stuff that used to, I'd probably lose my mind and be on the phone with my manager and stuff that would drive me up a wall. It doesn't bother me anymore. I'm just like, why did I ever get upset over stupid crap like this?
Do you have Ugg boots on, by the way? I'm just looking at your
These
boots.
These are leather Ugg boots.
You're the only man that could wear Ugg boots that I wouldn't go, hey, you look like a queer or whatever. I wouldn't say that to you.
Yeah. But you got a pair, Rover. You got the slippers.
I have Ugg slippers. That's right. They make
have
fun
Ugg
of me all the
slippers
time.
at home, too. And I found these in Utah on a snowboard trip. because I was walking around in like skateboard sneakers and my feet were freezing. And I found these, like I was with my wife and she's like, check these out. And I was like, wow, those actually look cool. I'm not going to look like a douche. And so, yeah, and I knew I was coming to the Midwest where temperatures have been, kind of cold, and I figured I'm bringing my Uggs.
My sister sent me a list of things that she wanted. I have a younger sister who's like 21. She sent me a list of things that she wanted for Christmas, and she wanted some Ugg boots on there. So I went to the mall. I got her these Ugg boots, and I FedExed them to her. While I was in there, in this store, this guy was in there, and he was looking at the men's Ugg boots. And he's looking at them, and he's like, oh, yeah, this is nice, this is nice. And I swear, I kid you not, the woman who was the sales clerk said to him in the middle of him shopping, she goes, guys just don't really look good in Ugg boots. Maybe it's, and I mean, she totally lost the sale and basically said, don't buy these Ugg boots. It was, wow. I'd never seen anything like that, but you can pull it off.
And, and you know what? They're super warm and they're super comfortable.
And if I say anything else, I'll stick that Ugg boot right up my ass because he's an Anthrax, damn it. The tour, the Speaking Words 2014 tour, is tonight, 7:30 at the Agora Ballroom. Let me give the website for tickets. It's clevelandagora.com. It's over there on Euclid Avenue. Scott's website is scott-ian.com, IAN. And how long do you do this spoken word tour for?
I'm out till March 8th. I finish up in Portland, Maine, and then I'm off again till the end of May. Anthrax heads over to Europe for festivals all summer, and we're also in the thick of writing a record right now too. We're working on 14 songs, which are all in some state of being finished, and this tour has actually been really good for me so far because I'm not like flying or on a tour bus. This is me and my buddy Matt, who's tour managing me, in like a Chevy.
Oh, really?
Driving from show to show, city to city. And the landscape has been very inspiring, actually, because the bleakness of the roads through here, driving Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, or Pittsburgh. And it's made for some very dark lyric writing in the car over the last few days. So it's been good for me.
All the guys in Anthrax live, like you said, in different cities. How do you collaborate if you're writing a record? Do you guys get together, or do you send stuff to each other? Or?
Both. Technology affords us that ability now, which is awesome, where you could just, record ideas into GarageBand or whatever, Pro Tools, and just MP3 stuff to each other back and forth. And but we get together as well. Our drummer Charlie has a studio at his house in Chicago. I've got like a jam room thing set up at my place in L.A. So we did have a bunch of sessions in L.A. because it seemed like the last few times, especially on the last record, we pretty much spent 2 winters in Chicago writing that record, which I'm not going to complain about. I love the city, and writing in the wintertime, I think definitely psychologically kind of helps when you're in a metal band. But we did a bunch of sessions at my house in L.A., and I was a little bit worried that 72 degrees and sunny every day
make it too happy.
Was gonna make for a jam band record or something. Like we're gonna suddenly start sounding like Dave Matthews but not the case. It's, if anything, it went the opposite, and we overcompensated, and it's more brutal and thrashier than anything we've done in a long time. So that's something about the weirdness in Southern California, I guess, kicked in, and who knows?
Do you have any idea when the next Anthrax record is coming out? A date?
I'd like to think we would get in and start recording it in May before we go to Europe, but I think we'll probably use all the time between now and the touring to just finish working on songs, because it seems like the more time we spend writing, like some of the material that just kind of came out in the last few weeks is better than the stuff from 6 months ago. So we're just going to keep rolling with it, and then I would assume maybe in August is when we'll get in the studio when we get back from Europe, which would mean if in the studio in August, that would mean probably like a January, February release for the record.
All right. Scott Ian is tonight at the Agora Ballroom, Speaking Words 2014 tour. For tickets, it's clevelandagora.com. Scott, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it, and go see his show at the Agora tonight for some good stories. I have to take a quick break. We'll be right back on Rover's Morning Glory. Hang on.
Rover's Morning Glory.